Hello and welcome to Newsmakers for this Wednesday, December 18th, exactly 1 week from Christmas, 2 weeks from 2025. But before that comes New Year's Eve, and for the third year in a row, CHCH ringing in the new year live with our special, The Countdown to 2025. And this year's show hosted by the one and only award-winning Canadian media personality, George Stroumboulopoulos. A globally renowned storyteller, broadcaster, producer, entrepreneur, Stroumboulopoulos has hosted, produced iconic primetime news and late-night talk shows, including at the CBC, CNN, and of course, much music. His hit radio show, The Stroumbo Show, streamed in over 160 countries worldwide on Apple Music, and last year was appointed to the Order of Canada for his leading contributions to Canadian media and journalism as a renowned broadcaster and producer in television and radio, and he's bringing his talents to Hamilton. George, thanks for doing this.
Happy to see you. How are you?
I'm really excited, actually, nice. Because you are one of those people that doesn't matter the generation you grew up in, whether you knew you from Much Music, CBC, you are one of those iconic interviewers, and I like to think of myself as a pretty good interviewer. Yeah. So I'm not too nervous about most things. Yeah. I'm a little nervous right now.
Oh, you don't have to be nervous around me. Come on. This will be a cakewalk. It'll be easy, not that word. It'll be an easy for you. This will be easy. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Because even looking you up
now we should make it difficult and challenging just for fun, right? Shouldn't we do that?
Well, it's funny because even like looking up your story, from our first jobs in Kelowna, BC. Mm-hmm. My first job was in Kelowna, BC.
Where'd you work?
On radio. I worked at CKOC 1150.
Oh, I know it. I worked at The Lizard, which was a rock station, Kelowna's best rock. Was it 104.9 or 104.7? Yeah, it was
I think so, yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah. AM 1150, CKOC. I was the news, afternoon news guy. That was my first full-time job.
Amazing.
So Ontario college graduates go out to BC and then find a bigger opportunity back home. That's kind of your origin story, I guess we can call it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, a very condensed version of it.
It's more or less, yeah. I had worked at a pirate radio station. Before that, I was circling around some community radio, but yeah, ultimately going to Kelowna was really big for me, a Toronto boy going to Kelowna. I had always expected to leave home for work, and I valued it, actually. I thought it would be really cool to leave where I was from and go live around the world and live around the country and do different shows in different places. So I was really thrilled. Kelowna was really small back then. It was really small. The big debate we had was, should we start to put traffic reports in the morning show because there was one bridge that a few cars had backed up on. That's how small Kelowna was at the time. But it was fun, and I hosted a metal show called High Voltage, and it was, I mean, I made it really intense. It was really heavy music, right? So it was, I really enjoyed it.
Humber graduate, recently recognized with an award from the Premier. I did want to talk about that because here in Hamilton, the Mohawk broadcasting program is going by the wayside. Other colleges in Ontario are going to have to make tough decisions when it comes to programs, and they look at the future. Journalism programs have fallen by the wayside at colleges. What do you think when you hear these stories about programs being dropped, but programs like journalism, broadcasting, just skills that people almost take for granted at this point, communication roles?
Everybody talks about the demise of the industry. There's no industry demise in terms of what it is that we do. It's just who's in charge is scrambling now. That's who it's falling apart for. Big companies, it's falling apart for. The last election, which held in the U.S., which helped determine who the president was going to be, what did everybody call it in the States? They called it the podcast election. That's all broadcasting. That's all broadcasting. So it has more influence than it has ever had. The difference now, variety of voices you didn't usually have access to, different burden of proof. So a lot of it is irresponsible and dangerous, but a lot of it's not. A lot of it's amazing. So I look at the broadcast colleges changing. I spoke to the guys at Humber and I said, content creation is what this is. You're making content. That's what it is. That's not going away. You ask kids what they want to do for a living, an enormous number of them pick content creation in YouTube and things like that. And for a whole bunch of them, it's going to be telling stories. We're just storytellers. Now, we're storytellers based on fact, based on truth. Some of us are storytellers based on fiction. Some of us are some people are storytellers who think they're in news and they're just doing fiction. But there are lots of reasons to distrust the media, lots of reasons, but there are lots of reasons why it matters. And everybody says media, but what they really mean is corporate media. When they say media, mainstream media, there's still lots of opportunities for people with microphones and cameras to reach others and make a difference. It helps sway an election, a federal election in a pretty big country in the world, right? So it's not, what we do is really, it's kind of a great time for what we do. Now, do you have the stomach to be independent? That's the different thing. Can you look inside and figure out a way to do all the things that networks used to do for you? That's hard. Yeah. But I wouldn't be getting rid of programs. I would be adjusting them.
So what would your advice be to somebody who's in that program, who is, I'll use Niagara College as an example, because, BRTF, you took broadcasting for radio, television, and film. First of all, radio is a hard thing to come by these days. Terrestrial radio
but still
is not,
really meaningful.
Yeah.
It's still really meaningful.
We're going to discuss that in a bit, especially what you're doing now. But again, like for these people who, I just want to be on YouTube. I want to stand in front of my phone and do a little dance and go viral. What's your advice to that person if they want to take this seriously, if they want to make it a career?
Yeah, do it.
Do it.
Mic time. It's mic time. Do it. You have far more opportunity to reach an audience now than you ever did. When I was coming up, you had to get on a radio station or on a TV station, which was really difficult to do. There were only a handful. It was really difficult to get a microphone. It was really difficult to get on TV. Now, you can get lucky on TikTok and reach more people in one day than any of us have ever reached in our careers, right? So it's so much easier today. It's so much easier today to build a career in broadcasting. No. It's not easy to build it in the traditional way, but when I got into Humber College for radio, I remember a bunch of morning show cats came through, program directors came through, and they'd speak to the class. And they kept talking about the death of radio because of the Death Star, they called it, which was satellite radio. It did not kill radio. It did not kill radio. Every handful of years, there's a new technology that's going to wipe it out. Now we're getting into a world where generative AI is going to become a leading podcast option for people. But it won't be the only option. There are going to be a whole bunch of people who want real stuff. Look at the rise of homesteading in the United States. There are a lot of people who want to go back to a different version. You'll never have another, they say you'll never have like another mass experience. I don't know, Joe Rogan's pretty big. Tucker Carlson's pretty big in terms of numbers. Like, they reach a lot of people. They reach a lot of people. The H3 podcast reaches a lot of people. Its numbers sometimes rival any late night talk show in the US. And over time, even more. So it's never been easier, never been easier to do this. The hard part is your ability to figure it out. That's the hard part. But doing it, I mean, you and I can go live right now on our social media and be rolling. Right? We have cameras and microphones. It's great. But you don't need it to do it. So I think it's my advice is just do it.
Is there, so in that sense,
but figure out your voice.
Is there more talent than ever in the field, or is there less talent? Are we easily distracted? Like when you think about the people you came up with in school, people you worked with, the iconic broadcasters, is there more or less talent?
No, I don't think there's any more or less talent. I think what they have now is there's more entrepreneurship. People don't require a big deal with a broadcaster to have a viable career. You saw this with indie bands, in the Instagram, SoundCloud era. They were buying houses with cash, not needing a major label. That's a big deal. The Offspring had the highest selling independent record of all time up until that point. Think of that, right? And that came out in the early 90s on Epitaph. So there's far more individual entrepreneurship and kids figuring stuff out today than there have ever been. But I don't think there's any more talent. I think the talent that existed when I was in college, I mean, I went to school with people who are way more talented than me. They're incredible broadcasters, and I really admire their skill set. What there isn't now is, as much as there was then, is a discipline of broadcasting, and that's why you see people flame out early. a lot of content creators, a lot of YouTube creators, you can scroll through your favorite YouTube channels and invariably you'll find one video for each of them where they go, why I'm quitting YouTube, right? Like there's an element of, the sustainability is what the G's do, right? The sustainability, that's the real G play. Right. Can you keep going? Can you keep going, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we're new. We're like, if you think about it, YouTube is 20 years that it's been around, but really in this form, a decade, and the podcast explosion of the last 5 years, really. It existed long before that, of course, but podcasts used to be called foreground programming, which were mandated by the CRTC when radio stations used to have a certain amount of programming that had to be a certain kind of thing. Those are that barometer on Q107. It's essentially a podcast, right? And so things are definitely changing, but it's never been easier to pull this off.
You mentioned longevity. Do you have the guts to keep going? You clearly have. You're still doing it. Have you ever had those moments of doubt where you thought, I either can't do it, I don't want to do it, I want to find something else? And A, did you ever have those? And B, did you fight through? How did you fight through them?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
I've certainly have felt burnout. You know, I work at a really unhealthy pace. Like this, I wouldn't recommend my approach to anybody. This is not. I'm built for this, but I wouldn't recommend this approach to most people by any means. My greatest skill is my durability, and I don't know if that's a good thing. I really don't. You know, but I know I've never doubted. I've sometimes wonder if the thing I do will find an audience. But then I remember that that's not why I do it in the first place. I do it because I think expression's important, and I do it because I like to tell stories, and maybe somebody will find things over time. I still get people. I get more people stop me for the stuff I did at Much Music, and then some years more people stop me for the stuff I did at CBC, and they'll just find a video, and then somebody will send me a message about a radio show I did in 1994. So people find it when they find it, and I think that's really important. What I don't have, and sincerely, is I don't have an ego about this. I have a swagger, for sure, which is good and bad, often bad. But I don't have an ego about this because I don't place any value on it. For me, there's I don't feel any personal sense of accomplishment or pride in my career, and I never did. It's not why I do it, right? I genuinely like to make the thing.
Is that a protectionism thing, though?
No,
Are you
not for me. No.
Not for you?
No.
So for me, like I would agree. Like I try my best not to have an ego. I have a humor about my ego, right? I'll make jokes about it, little things like that. But like I'm not getting up every morning needing to watch myself on, something like that, or I'm not going to watch this interview back from beginning to end and think like, oh, that was a really good question by me. Really, And for me, I've always used it as just sort of like, okay, well, if I don't think too big of myself, then it doesn't matter what other people think. In that way.
I just think you don't want to put things into your subconscious that can skewer the purity of the process. Like there's something really, really meaningful about people who don't know each other, sitting down, trying to be honest and authentic with each other. Somebody's listening to this or watching this who's had a really rough day, and they're just sitting down and they feel a human connection. That's really important. We hear an awful lot about the epidemic of loneliness out there, and it's a real thing. Our opportunity is to help to be a part of somebody's day where maybe they feel a little less alone, even if they agree or disagree with us. That's a privilege to do that. To act like we are anything other than stewards of the conversation in our time, I think is detrimental and dangerous for your brain. So I don't engage in any of that tomfoolery with my brain. I keep my brain very clear about what the job is. I want to get paid. I want opportunity. I want to reach audience. I want all the things that come with it, for sure. But those aren't. And sometimes, depending on where you are in your life, they're driving factors. Oh, I need to do this part because this will set this up or whatever. But this is a craft, what we do. And I respect, it's like we don't know each other and they don't know us. And we're doing this together for a moment. If someone's watching this on their phone, commuting on a GO train, heading into work, and they've got their headphones in, and we're sharing this moment together, that's really meaningful, man. That's really, really meaningful, and I never take that for granted. So I don't care about the me in it.
Yeah.
The swagger is just because you are your brain chemistry, and I like to have a little fun. And I grew up watching old videos of the Sex Pistols and the Clash and early Metallica, and revisiting some of the Elvis stuff. And it's like, man, rock and roll. It's rock and roll, right?
I don't rock this hair for nothing. Come on,
rock
man.
and roll.
Like, listen,
and it's good and bad to have that rock and roll for sure.
Yeah.
But so far, it's kept me going.
Well, and just something you said there. Yeah, do I do it because they pay me? Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, it's a
I wouldn't
job.
do this job for free. Like I have a certain amount of pride in it. But what you said is like making that connection. And here we are again, two people, no notes in front of us, no prepared questions, nothing like that. Yeah. But I'll try to do that even before we hit record.
Yeah.
You and I were having some great conversations, and I'm sure my boss is yelling at me, being like, "Louie, you should have saved these questions for the interview."
Well, here's the thing. Whatever good questions did make it to air, have better ones when we go to air, right? And that's it. And over time, you can't solve the world or two people in one conversation. But we can just move the rock a little bit up the hill. And then the next time we talk, we move it further up the hill. And I think that's the kind of realistic human relationship bonding that I think really matters.
So is there an element of you want somebody to learn something when you speak? You want to teach, like you want to teach something? Like what do you want people to take away?
No, I
from
want
like you and John Bon Jovi sitting down like old friends on Apple Music there.
With John Bon Jovi, that conversation was about humility. Yeah. Right? Humility. And about...
It's a hard conversation to have with John Bon Jovi.
You would think, but John is the guy that can have it because John's a grown-up who he's also one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And I'm lucky enough to know him now and call him a friend. But that conversation is about the human experience. And all of them are that. So it's not like I feel I'm qualified to teach. Look, here's where I am a jackass in this business. I feel like I'm sharing good music with you. And I take that seriously. I don't share crap music with you. If there's a band I don't like, I don't share it. Right? If there's a band I think, this band's got it, I'll share it. So I don't want to teach, but I want to connect you to things. I want to connect you to ideas. I want to connect you to people. I want to connect you to songs and movies and books. I want to connect you to philosophies. What you do with them is your business. Right? I'm a really big believer in the sovereignty of the individual. I don't want to tell you how to think. I will try to show you stuff in context, and maybe that will help guide you to a kinder, more lovely human experience with compassion, empathy, that kind of stuff. But I recognize that the human brain does not want to be told what to do. That we don't do that. And when we're wrong, the science shows we double down on being wrong if we're presented the correct information. So it's ineffective for people to go on the mic and just be like blah blah, blah unless you're getting into the brainwashing game, which is also effective. But I don't want to do that.
Especially talking about music. You're saying that you love. If I'm introducing you to a song, it's because it's a good song. Music is so objective to some people, though.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's not. No, there's a difference between good music and bad music.
Well, no, yes, but it's not about how it sounds. It's about how it's made.
Okay.
If well, obviously, of course it's objective, but to me, if it's an artist's expression, it carries way more value to me than a corporate exercise. 900 songwriters, 55 producers, 16 people auditioning to be in the band, singing a song they have no real emotional connection to. That's really good music. There's a lot of value in that, but it is not the same thing as an artist who is expressing in a real human. So to me, they're not in the same space. Right? They're not in the same space. I'm not saying this can't be a good song, but it is not the same as that. And I don't mind digging my heels in about that because it's kind of fun. And I'll tell you, when people talk about generative AI taking over the music business, do you think generative AI is ever going to replace Eddie Vedder? Not a chance. Not a chance. No. Generative AI is never going to replace John Prine, never going to replace what Joan Baez or Bob Dylan meant, never going to replace Public Enemy. Yeah, generative AI can write those lyrics and mimic a voice and can create beats, but it'll never have a human experience, so it'll never be true. It'll just be a document. Whereas Chuck D was telling you a truth from lived experience. A computer can't experience. It can only process data. So if you listen to stuff that isn't true, that's why we have generative AI making music, right? So to me, there's a very clear.
Yeah.
It's one of the very few things in the world that I'll fight anybody on. I'll fight anybody on.
Well, it's one of my most YouTube viewed videos that I've seen. House of Strombo, Arkel's weekend show concert.
Amazing.
I think it's a series of 3 videos, maybe all together. But just one of those things. You've always been a champion of Canadian music, and I guess that's how they twisted your arm to get here for CHCH's countdown to 2025.
You know what? They didn't have to. My first thought was, no, I'm not going to do it, because I didn't know where I was going to be, what city. I didn't think I was going to do it. I met Sabrina and Maddie, and I thought they were great. Honestly, that was a big driver for me. I went, I think the producers,
the aura, the vibes. Yeah, you got that.
I worked with a lot of people in my career, and I just walked at a meeting, and I went, I think they're interesting. And also, a big thing for me is Rick Campanelli did it, and I love Rick. My love for Rick is boundless. So Rick did it, and I went, oh yeah, for sure. Rick did it, I'll do it. Like, I love Rick.
Yeah.
So, and I saw what Rick did, and that smile is eternal. His work ethic. I just love Rick Campanelli so much, and I was so grateful that him and I have our careers have what we have together with Much Music. Yeah. Like, we are tied and bonded with that. So yeah, for me, that made it very easy to do this.
The
bands are great.
Yeah, we'll get into the bands. We will do that, because now you brought up Rick, because like I said, we were lucky enough to sit across from each other in situations just like this last year. And just like with him, and people are going to ask me, what's Strombo like? What's Strombo like? And what I'll use is he's genuine. Is that something that you've always taken pride in? Is that maybe there's a character. It's never been a character you play on the radio or anything like that.
Never.
Person you see on TV. That's you. That's who you are.
Yeah. I take no pride in it. I take no pride in anything, really. But honestly, like, a career is there's no sense of value. It doesn't mean you're better or anything. How you treat people really matters. Like I said, Rick, when I got to Much Music, I've worked at lots of places where there was somebody there before, and other hosts, and their ego and insecurity gets in the way, and they make it very difficult for you to find a footing. I've worked at lots of places where there's a star, and that star, especially because a guy like me comes in with a bit of swagger, and I'm me, so there's a lot of pushback, and you can sense people's insecurities. I got to Much Music, and I was doing a lot of the interviews that maybe Rick would have done at one point, or other people might have done. Rick was so supportive and such a bro. Now, I met Rick early when he had just won the temp competition. We were sitting behind each other, sitting beside each other at a Raptors game when they were playing at the Skydome, and Rick couldn't have been nicer. And when I got to Much, Rick created a space and a bond with me that allowed me to kind of find my footing there. He could have made it difficult, but I don't think he could have, because I don't think it's in him. I don't think it's in him to. But lots of other people would. And the way, the sort of professionalism and the generosity of spirit that Campanelli has, it's really unique, man. I've been in this business a long time. There are very few people like Rick. Yeah,
and like I said, for me, it was just like, he connected with you, and it's something you've done right away. It's sitting across from me, like, I don't know your whole story. I know you well enough. You were always a guy on TV. Now you're just a guy sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same. Like, people are going to ask, what's Strombo like? He's a great guy. Like, he's a great guy. He's great to chat with.
Don't get him talking about generative AI music.
Oh my gosh.
Don't get him on that.
Don't worry, we'll cut that part out, man. I got full editorial control here on the podcast, so I can take that out when I need to.
No, leave it in. Come on. Let's pick a fight. Leave it in.
Well, I mean, listen, generative AI, all that stuff. You are with Apple now.
Yeah.
What's that like for you? Because, I mean, Apple is such a huge corporation type thing. People, Jon Stewart has called out the company while being on the company. What's it like for you?
For me, they hired me and said, do what you do.
Yeah.
And that's how it's been for 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I play the songs, I pick the songs, I have a producer I work with, I have a team at one point, and we just play the tunes, we told the stories, and they're supportive. Yeah. And the reason why, I think Apple Music was very centered around the human experience. and they have been really good to me, letting me do that. Yeah, so that's been my experience.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, a little plug for I've had Apple Music since it started. Listen, $9.99 a month is not that big of a deal to have the world at my fingertips, because that's literally the greatest thing. Is you can hit the button and say, "Hey Siri, play this," and it's instantly in your headphones, and it's just
all these great songs. Are you kidding?
Yeah. You get an endless catalog of what you want to do.
How many people do you think right now are cursing your name because you said "Hey" and now their phones are going off? That's what's happening right now.
Oh no, my own phone's going off in my pocket right now. Let's talk about the music that's coming here on December 31st alongside you. What a lineup!
Great lineup.
I mean, people you've known, artists you've known. What are you most excited to? Obviously, all of them, but to get to celebrate Canadian music on New Year's on Canadian television, it's got to be special.
I think the range of sounds are going to be really neat. I think going from having Basha play. She's so singular in the way she performs, and her voice is incredible. I've known her since she was a teenager. Watching Bedouin, Bedouin Soundclash, I saw them open for bands in Toronto. That's when I first interviewed them on Much Music when they were brand new. And what they did coming out of the, because a whole component of punk rock was heavily inspired by Jamaican music. And to hear Bedouin Soundclash carry that tradition on, and then Death from Above are going to come on and just be blowtorches, which I think the world needs a bit of rock and roll like that. And again, there's nobody in this country that sounds like Death from Above 1979. So to hear DFA play, and I've seen them all at the very beginnings of their career, been lucky enough to have them. They've all been in my home doing shows or playing songs at some point. So it's just gonna be really fun.
Little Strombo house party here.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be fun.
Me and my buddy broke out the orange vinyl Bedouin the other day. Once we found out they were playing, we're like, you got to throw it on. You got to throw on the what's your piece of advice for someone who may be thinking going into the new year, they want a different perspective, or they're looking for some motivation, or what would you want to tell that person who's going into the new year, maybe a little bit down on the past 12 months, but don't want to start fresh?
You don't need motivation. You don't need inspiration. You don't need any of that stuff. You need discipline. I'm speaking to me too. Most of the things I do, I don't want to do. I do them because I know I need to do them, and that requires discipline. But in going into the new year, there's a lot of beautiful things happening in the world, and there's an enormous amount of crime and heartbreak in this world happening to people, and everybody feels powerless. You don't have to change the world, but you can make a little change here, a little change there, and collectively we can do it. We have this we're raised with this exceptionalism idea, and we celebrate the person who did the thing, but really the person who did the thing is often surrounded by an enormous group of people on the grassroots level working really hard to make change, either politically, socially, economically, in a humanitarian way. It's never one person, and because we live in a world with front-facing cameras and, hey, TikTok and all this stuff, we feel like we have to also be that. You don't. And if you're looking to be a part of something better in the world, I can assure you that there are other people doing it, and they would love your help. You're not alone. It feels like it. Also, the other thing I would say is there are a lot of people that want us fighting each other and being divided. And some people, by the way, we should be fighting and be divided. Some things we should be fighting on.
Anti.
Yeah. Like this, I'm not sitting here saying, can't we all just get along? No, we can't. Because some people have really problematic points of view. But that's the battle of the human experience. And I think that change only happens when people collectively push towards it. But it's not like they're pushing a boulder that's inanimate. You're pushing against market forces, and you have to be aware of it. Be aware of who the villain is, who the enemy is. And it's really easy to get down on it all. Of course it is, because it's a nightmare. But you don't have to do it all.
So why are you optimistic heading into 2025? Are you optimistic heading into no?
I don't think
Is optimism necessary then?
I think for lots of people, optimism is necessary. I'm wired differently, right?
Yeah.
So am I optimistic? No. Am I hopeful? No. But that's not a reason to not do the thing. Like I said, I'm very durable and I'm very resilient, and I'm a fighter. So if I can be the sharp edge of a sword, then I'll be the sharp edge of a sword, because that's my role in this fight. That's my role in keeping people feeling healthier and happier and connected, and knowing that we can actually make it a better place. Of course, there's lots of things to be optimistic about, plenty of things to be optimistic about, but plenty of things to not be. And so I just kind of remove my need for either of those external validations, or maybe those are internal reasoning. I don't need that. It's just, what's the task at hand? What's the assignment? What can I do now? That's really how I look at it. So I don't require any of the other motivation stuff. It all comes from within, right?
Yeah.
It all comes from within.
Is that a skill that's taken, or is it? It's always been. You've always been that way.
I think I've always been that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
the
inherently.
way you've been wired. You said that a couple times.
Yeah.
It's just the way you're wired.
I'm inherently lazy, but I like.
Wow, man, I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, like I'm inherently lazy. I think it's awesome.
I think there's no questions prepped. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's all like dumb, right? Like, what are we doing? There's aliens. What are we doing? I don't even know if they're aliens.
They're drones. Okay,
they're drones.
They're
Yeah.
drones. They're
I think those are government. By the way, I don't think those are.
You
Yeah.
got it. I've been looking for my viral moment, and I got it. Strombo says
Why are they
aliens.
Not, if they're not doing anything about it, then they know whose they are.
Yeah, okay.
Right? That's what I believe anyway. But I don't know.
I got my viral clip.
That's what I believe.
That's what I got.
Well, if I'm not the only one who's saying that. That's,
no. Strombo says government.
Lots of people
got
think
the headline there.
Well, they at least know who it is. No, I feel like I know what I can't do, and I know how I get in my own way, and I don't like getting in my own way. So I'm very disciplined about looking at the things that are obstacles in my way that I put there, and doing the work to try and beat them, to get past them. Some things I can't get past, and so I say, okay, is that boulder going to remain in my way? Can I build steps over it? What is my workaround? So I know that to be healthy, to be happy, in quotes, whatever that means, to be joyous, which I am, you have to feed it. You have to feed it, and I think there's no stasis in life. So you don't do a thing and get there, cool, I'm here. Yeah. You might be there for 10 minutes, and then your blood sugar is going to change, and you're going to get a phone call from somebody that you love dearly who's going through a tragedy, and now all of a sudden, everything out of your control is thrown at you when you just thought you were in control. So you're constantly working. I am constantly working to keep myself engaged. I've never lost the joy. Maybe that's because I was privileged enough to express for a living, so I've nurtured that in me. That's possible. Yeah. But also I feel as if, like, I hate...
You separated happy and joy.
Happiness is just like it's just a hallmark weird thing that they tell us, you know, like, what's happy? Content? I like to be.
Well, that's why, and that's why I think that was pretty telling. To happiness, you put in air quotes. You followed that up. The very next word was joyous.
Yeah, I'm joyous.
Some people might put those two together.
Yeah,
but again, it's...
no. I think happiness is a veneer. That's important, and I think joy is the fuel source. I think joy is the thing that drives my daily life. There have been many moments where I don't feel it, and so I have to figure out why. Yeah. But I'm very much... I'm at a toxic level of accountability for myself. Like, I'm at a toxic level. Even things that have nothing, that are not my fault, I'll make them my fault so I can figure out a solution. I acknowledge that. But it works for me. I'm in my 50s. What do I care? Like, I'm not building anything, bro. This is it. You know. Yeah. So I think you have to do the work all the time to remain. You have to be vigilant against yourself too, right? Because our brains are designed to protect us from experiencing wild things. And I'm an adventurous spirit, so I've learned to ignore my brain for a long time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this life.
Yeah. Oh, I always go back to, like, there's no game plan on how you're supposed to live your life, right?
Oh, no.
That's kind of the way.
Except to be kind. I think to be kind. I think to be kind should be the game plan.
And it's so easy to be kind.
It's so easy to be kind. And we're raised to achieve. The dumbest thing that we've ever done to ourselves in this part of the world, maybe they do it elsewhere. I haven't been to every country, but this thing to achieve is, I think, so stupid. Yeah. I think what you should be achieving, like, I know why, because you need stability, but where we achieved to get to jobs and all the businesses got shut down and stores are out and no one can afford rent anymore and you can't afford a head of lettuce anymore. So what did that get us? This extractive capitalism, where to get us, right? So I think kindness should be the game plan in life. I think it won't be for a lot of people, but it will be for a lot.
It's free to be kind and celebrating others. That's I like that, and I think that's why I take after your style of just I have no reason to tear anybody down, but
No,
you have no reason to celebrate. You can tear bad people down.
And you can also challenge ideas.
Yeah.
You can challenge issues, and I think there's value in that. But yeah, celebrating other people is joyous.
Yeah.
And most people, especially like you have a microphone and you have a show, most people will never get to this place. So if you're not here serving them, what are you doing, right?
Oh, don't ask me that.
No, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I really believe it, and but I think that was baked into me from my mom as a kid, and also I just listened to the kinds of music that put an enormous responsibility on my shoulders. So when you grow up listening to certain punk bands, certain folk artists, certain rock and roll bands, certain hip hop artists, certain metal artists, there is a responsibility to know what's happening in the world and to play your part. So I've always liked protest music and uprising music and fight music.
Yeah.
And it still fuels me at this age listening to fight music because that's why I think I care so much about everything, is because I learned it from Joe Strummer and Johnny Rotten and Bob Dylan. You know, hearing Masters of War by Dylan when you're 12 years old, or hearing Sam Stone from John Prine when you're 12 years old. My Uncle Paul played both those for me. And hearing John Prine talk about the mental health of a soldier after the war, the PTSD, and the ultimate passing of the soldier in the most heartbreaking, authentic way. So, people say, oh, we talk about this stuff now, we didn't talk about then. Yeah, the great artists did. The great artists did. Prine did all the time. Dylan did all the time. So I think I am this way because of the music and the stuff that I was introduced to and the role it played in my life. Plus, this is one of the things that annoys everybody else, dude, is being a Gen Xer. As a Gen Xer, we just really had the best era for music and culture. We had the best. The 60s had some great stuff, but it all culminated from 78 or 77 to 94. It was pretty good. Even 99. Even 99. But just the kinds of voices we were hearing, the beginning of, the first time you hear, I could be at home with my tape decks going from a Clash cassette to a Dylan cassette, and then all of a sudden I was putting in an Eric B. and Rakim's cassette, and then I was a little bit older when I heard De La Soul and Tribe, and of course the Beastie Boys evolution from that License to Ill stuff to the gods they became, right? How could that not impact you when the art was so responsible, so powerful, and challenged the notions of the culture we lived in? That's why I think Gen Xers are super annoying, like myself, on social media, because we kind of
we knew it was perfect with us. Everything it's been downhill ever since.
Our arthritic shoulders, lifting up a cup of coffee, listening to people fight about music and my hand doesn't work the same way as it used to be. And how come my frozen shoulder? Yeah, but at least I had the Beastie Boys. At least I had Rage Against the Machine.
Oh man, Strombo, we could have got this going for another hour, but I appreciate your time, man. Best of luck. Enjoy our studios. Enjoy the friendliness of CHCH. Just a lot of great people work here, and we're glad we get to call you a coworker, even if just for one night on New Year's Eve.
Listen, dude, 2025. If the time traveling alternate dimension aliens come, this might be the last New Year's show ever. So let's go get it.
Listen, if something's going to happen in New Jersey on January 1st, you're going to want to watch CHCH.
Oh no, it's going to happen. It's going to happen in Iowa. It's going to happen in Saskatchewan. It's going to happen in North Dakota. That's where it's going to happen.
Strombo, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. Great chat. All right, George Stroumboulopoulos is hosting a countdown to 2025 here on CHCH. Guess when that is? It's New Year's Eve. Yeah, that's right. Right here on CHCH and streaming live on CHCH.com as well. All right, my thanks to Strombo for joining me today. My thanks to Laura Brody for directing today's show. And while you're here, why don't you like and subscribe to CHCH Podcast so you never miss an episode of this show or any of the other great shows we have for you, including a brand new episode of Newsmakers coming up later this week with two of the stars from Homicide: Life on the Street. We have Reed Diamond and the other guy coming on. It's not in the script, Strombo. Don't put me on the spot like that. Two of the guys are coming on. All right, from all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great day.